All right, so
let's start. So welcome everybody to Berlin Reboots the Internet. We are very happy to have you joining us today. And my name is Stefania and I'm BerChain Association Manager and I'm your host for today. And today's event, Berlin Reboots the Internet, is 1.5 hour webinar we organized thanks to the support and the collaboration of DFINITY Foundation. And as BerChain, we teamed up with DFINITY Foundation to bring forward Berlin as a starting point to discuss the future of Web3, since Berlin is widely seen as the hotspot for Web3 technology. And for this reason, we invited most promising scientists and experts to this virtual roundtable to discuss how the Berlin ecosystem facilitates the path towards a fully functional, advanced decentralized web. This session will be recorded and will be available on our BerChain YouTube channel and will be also posted on our social media channels. And I'll provide you with few links along the way. Now I would like to guide you quickly through the agenda for today. So we'll see after this intro, Dominic Williams, founder and chief scientist at DFINITY, with the keynote titled The Internet Computer, Blockchain Singularity. And we will continue afterwards with a roundtable discussion with, as guests, Elad Verbin, lead scientist and founding partner at Lunar Venture, and Rouven, identity lead at ConsenSys Mesh and executive director at Decentralized Identity Foundation, Raphael Schultz, founder at BCP Labs, and Lomesh Dutta, vice president of growth at DFINITY. The roundtable will be moderated by Diksha Dutta, podcast host at Voices of Data Economy. So welcome to all the speakers. And a few words about the organizers. So BerChain is a nonprofit member-led association. We are based in Berlin, and our goal is to promote and connect the local Berlin blockchain ecosystem. And for those interested, I'll be pasting on our website and a few links to know more about our activities. And DFINITY Foundation is a nonprofit organization that develops the internet computer, a decentralized open source general purpose blockchain designed to host smart contracts. So I'll hand the floor to Dominic Williams for the keynote. Thank you for being here and listening.
thank you, Stefania. So I'm guessing I'm going to just press play on this presentation and share the screen. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do it. Oops. Okay, hold on. Here we go. How's that? Is that good?
Perfect.
I think it's possibly sharing the wrong screen though, right? It's sharing the bottom screen, not the. It's not showing the main screen. It's saying current slide 1 of 27. Is that right?
No, we're seeing the top screen.
You are seeing the top screen. Okay, because
Yes.
when I'm looking into that thing. Okay. All right, good. So Stefania, thanks for introducing me. I'm Dominic Williams, president, founder, chief scientist of DFINITY Foundation. We work on this thing called the internet computer, which we're going to talk about. DFINITY Foundation is currently the biggest contributor to the internet computer blockchain project. It's actually the biggest R&D operation in blockchain. Little known fact. We really started work many years ago. The foundation was created October 2016. It received a lot of funding February 2017, and built up a very large R&D organization that sort of spans several continents and has over 200 people working away. There are some other organizations in the space, one's called the Internet Computer Association, that's brand new, and its purpose really is just to provide support to the ecosystem. You know, people building, researchers working on the science, people investing in projects building on the internet computer and so on. So the mission of the DFINITY Foundation is to help enable a blockchain singularity. And what we mean by blockchain singularity is the migration of all humanities systems and services onto blockchain. And, you know, naturally that means migration of systems and services actually onto blockchain where they're implemented entirely by smart contracts. So that's something very different to what we're seeing, you know, in the main today, where, you know, systems and services really are built on the cloud, on the corporate cloud, and just make a few blockchain calls on the back end. The purpose of the internet computer is to be a world computer which replaces traditional IT completely and enables people to build entirely from smart contracts. So this network has been scaling out since it was launched. You know, you can see in 6 months, it's already processed 355 million blocks, and it's accelerating all the time. So it's currently processing about 28 blocks a second, but, you know, you can expect that to soon be in the hundreds and then the thousands and one day millions. The internet computer is designed to scale linearly and process any volume of smart contract data and computation required. So one of the things this addresses is that, you know, traditional blockchain is too complicated, both for developers and for users, and it isn't really Web3. So if you think about how you interact with a dApp on Ethereum, say, you know, first of all, you need to install a Chrome web browser extension, i.e. MetaMask typically. Then you need to purchase some ETH from an exchange and put it in your wallet. And then you need to use that, you know, browser extension, MetaMask, to interact with the website. But the website's actually running on Amazon Web Services. So you not only have to trust that, you know, the Chrome Web Store hasn't tampered with your wallet, you also have to trust that the website running on Amazon Web Services typically also hasn't been tampered with. And yeah, there are just a lot of problems with this architecture. On the one hand, it's very clunky for users to need to download this browser extension from the Chrome Web Store and fill it with cryptocurrency from an exchange before they can start interacting with these dApps. On the other hand, it's not at all secure. You have to trust the Chrome Web Store hasn't been malicious and tampered with the wallet. You've got to trust the Chrome Web Store won't ban the wallet, and that's happened before. In 2018, they banned MetaMask for a while. And of course, you have to trust Amazon Web Services and the website you're interacting with hasn't been tampered with. So it gives a bad user experience, and it's just not secure. So the internet computer is really the world's first world computer. And in fact, work began to sort of realize that world computer dream that was first talked about in sort of 2014 in the Ethereum community. And it's created by the world's most advanced blockchain protocol called ICP, Internet Computer Protocol. And you can use it to build absolutely anything, using smart contracts, Web3, dApps, SocialFi, GameFi, DeFi, NFTs, or even just traditional websites and enterprise systems. The important thing here is that you can build anything without any need for cloud services. So to give you an idea of the sort of structure of the network and how it's going to scale out, it's actually, the internet computer is formed by a sovereign physical network. So most blockchains today actually run primarily in the cloud. And we think that's a very bad thing. We think that blockchain networks should be sovereign. The internet computer runs on a network of node machines, and these, for a bunch of reasons, can't be run in the cloud. So, excuse me. So in 10 years, you can expect to see many billions of dApps and smart contracts on the internet computer. These are actually installed on something called subnet blockchains. The subnet blockchains are transparent to the dApps and contracts, but within the network, there are these subnet blockchains, and that's how the internet computer scales out linearly. These subnet blockchains are hosted by these node machines, special hardware that are built to these standard specifications. And of course, those node machines are installed in data centers somewhere. The node machines, of course, are run by independent owner-operators. And the internet computer actually uses something called deterministic decentralization, which means that it identifies node operators and combines node machines from independent node operators, and it actually looks at this decentralization hierarchy of, for node machines of, node provider, the people owning and operating these things, data center, that's where, the data center where the node machine's installed, geography, where the data center resides, and then jurisdiction. The internet computer runs something called Canister smart contracts. These are really an evolution of traditional smart contracts. One of the very important points about Canister smart contracts is that they implement something called the actor software model, and they can run in parallel, which is the basis of scaling, of course. Each Canister smart contract is actually a bundle of WebAssembly bytecode and persistent memory pages. So developers build Web3 dApps by uploading these Canister smart contracts to the internet computer, and absolutely no cloud computing service is necessary at all. If you're a developer, you can just write these Canister smart contracts and upload them to the internet computer, and that's all you have to do. And there's even actually, if you want to get started quickly, there's something called Motoko Playground. Just search for Motoko, which is a kind of language supported on the internet computer. Motoko Playground, and you'll find a place where you can write Motoko code, compile it to WebAssembly in the browser, and just upload it straight to the internet computer. You don't need cloud computing. And one of the reasons for this is that smart contracts on the internet computer can actually serve web HTTP directly into the browsers of end users. And that's one part of the innovation here. Another part is that users don't need tokens to interact with dApps on the internet computer. And the reason is that these super high performance, super efficient Canister smart contracts on the internet computer, they're so performant and efficient that they can actually service HTTP requests. They use something called a reverse gas model, and that means that they pay for their own computation. Okay, so the difference is that on other blockchains, the smart contracts are paying for their own. Sorry, on other blockchains, the user that's interacting with smart contracts pays for the computation they initiate, which means that to interact with dApps, you need to have a token wallet, such as MetaMask, and of course that model's been replicated on Solana and Avalanche and everywhere else. You need to have this token wallet in order that you can send payments for the computation with your interaction, the computation you're initiating with the interactions. So on the internet computer, that's not the case. A user can interact with a smart contract without having a token wallet, because the Canister smart contracts are paying for their own computation, and that gets rid of one of the biggest barriers to entry for users, because anybody can just put in a URL, and that URL will load interactive web directly from the smart contract, and you can start interacting with that dApp without any need for tokens. Of course, another aspect of this is that that makes this possible is that Canister smart contracts are extraordinarily fast and efficient, and it wouldn't be possible to do this otherwise. So to give you some ideas of the scale of the improvements. The internet computer runs at web speed. It can process what we call an update transaction, a transaction that modifies state in 2 seconds. So, for example, I mean, thinking about it as a cryptocurrency, if I sent you some ICP tokens, the transaction sending you ICP tokens will be finalized in 2 seconds. But it could also be a call to a smart contract. For example, you could have a smart contract implementing Reddit, for example, on the internet computer. And I could, if I posted a new article to some kind of decentralized Reddit on the internet computer, the post of that article will be finalized in 2 seconds. Meanwhile, if a transaction doesn't modify state, if it just effectively queries it, we call it a query call, that can be done in milliseconds. So that's obviously a major improvement over traditional blockchains. I mean, Bitcoin takes about 40 minutes in expectation. It's variable to finalize a transaction. Ethereum about 15 minutes, Cardano 2 minutes, and Solana 16 seconds. And of course, the big thing here is that for example, an update call can or query call can be processing vast amounts of data, whereas these blockchains, for the most part, are doing much simpler things. So the efficiency improvement's been enormous, and that's owing to a lot of things, largely to deterministic decentralization and the way that the internet computers are able to reduce replication while maintaining the levels of security and resilience you'd expect from a blockchain. Ethereum, I mean, this is a widely unknown fact. A gigabyte of data on Ethereum can cost you as much as $500 million. It's extraordinary. And that, I think at the moment it's less because the price has come down. It varies, with the gas fees. But this is the easiest way of understanding why traditional blockchains can only be used in conjunction with the cloud. When you buy an NFT, that NFT isn't living on the blockchain. It's just a little signature, a little cryptographic fingerprint, a hash of the NFT that's stored on the blockchain. The NFT lives on the cloud, and this is the reason it just costs you so much money to store data on blockchains. I don't know what this deck is a few days old. I think that I'd imagine the current cost of a gigabyte of data on Ethereum is probably about $200 million right now. Obviously, far too expensive to use for anything other than just storing fingerprints. But even blockchains billing themselves as the fastest and most efficient are expensive. So it will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to store a gigabyte of data on Solana. And again, this means that there is absolutely no choice but to build your dApps and services on the cloud and then just make a few calls to the blockchain on the back end. By contrast, you can store, use smart contracts to store data on the internet computer blockchain, and it'll cost you about $5 a year currently, and that will come down over time because the network scales, and you pay it using something called cycles, which are the sort of approximate equivalent of gas on Ethereum. Okay, so I believe it's the fastest growing blockchain in the space. Again, you'd never believe it because how can I put this? There are a lot of people out there that don't really want to see the internet computer succeed. So after we launched in May, there's a lot of FUD and craziness, and there was a sort of news blackout. You didn't hear anything about it for 5 months in the crypto media. Nevertheless, engineers and entrepreneurs are pretty smart people, and they've been building out on the internet computer en masse. There are well over 1,000 developers building right now. This is, again, a few days old. I don't know what the latest figures are. I wouldn't be surprised if we've broken 1,500 by now. So there are a lot of very, very interesting dApps and services being built on the internet computer, things that you just couldn't build on other blockchains. So talking of that, one of them is called OpenChat, and OpenChat is an example of SocialFi, and SocialFi blends social media with DeFi, and that means tokenization and users becoming both the owners of services and the team that helps run them. So let's just think about how that applies in the case of OpenChat. So OpenChat is a chat service that runs entirely from the internet computer blockchain, and the smart contracts actually process chat messages, which I think gives you a measure of how far blockchains come and how advanced internet computer technology is. And but look, I mean, I think I don't know if they've updated it. I know there's a new UI, but the UI I saw a week or two ago, it looks very much like WhatsApp. It's served into a browser. Now, truth be told, so you've replicated WhatsApp on a blockchain and it's served into a browser, and you've got all these nice ways of authenticating. It's a thing called internet identity. You can use the fingerprint sensor on your laptop or Face ID on your phone. It's very, very cool. But you're not going to overcome the network effects of established tech monopolies like Facebook just by replicating their functionality. You need to use tokenization. So, what you're going to see is that a chat service like OpenChat, your account is going to be, on the one hand, a chat account, and on the other hand, a crypto wallet, right? It's both things at once. So, you're going to see a lot of convergence. It might be that the crypto wallet of the future is actually a chat app. And you may have heard the internet computers sort of integrating with Bitcoin using this thing called Chainkey Cryptography. And so it'll be possible to send ICP tokens, cycles, Bitcoin, NFTs, whatever, with chat messages. I'm sure there'll be lots of other things too, like, document signing and notarization. So, there's going to be this convergence where, the chat service account is really going to be a crypto wallet, and you're going to be able to send, cryptocurrency and tokenized assets with chat messages, and probably negotiate for them and do atomic swaps and things like that. Now, that's part of it. That's obviously very cool. The other part is that users are made the owners of the service and part of the team that runs it. So you can imagine with something like OpenChat that users who are online, right, who are online, may be randomly airdropped governance tokens. So, for example, you could have authenticated yourself to OpenChat and be active on it. And while you're active on it, just completely randomly, it might challenge you and say, prove you're real, prove you're not a bot. Maybe you'll do a capture or something like that. And if you successfully respond, in a timely way and prove you're a human being, OpenChat could just say, right, here's 3 governance tokens. Here's 10 governance tokens. Here's 6 governance tokens. Just give you some small random number of governance tokens. So obviously the more often you're online, the more likely you are to collect more governance tokens. Now, you can imagine that millions of users might be given, millions of early users, especially given governance tokens in this way, making them, owners of the service, but also part of the team, because those users that receive governance tokens in the chat service will naturally become advocates for the chat service and recommend it to their friends and be willing to talk about its benefits and encourage others to use this, just decentralized version of chat. So in a sense, not only are they becoming owners, but they're becoming part of the business development and sales team that drives the adoption of the decentralized service, which is very, very powerful, especially when you consider you might be able to, build a team of millions of people, right? That's the power of tokenization and decentralization. But you can also do more sophisticated things with token schemes, like, create frameworks that encourage users to get involved in moderation and things like that. So, games. GameFi will obviously blend game functionality with DeFi functionality, and it'll make games much more compelling. So here's a common open source sort of game where you have to sort of race between the blocks as long as you can without hitting one. But imagine if there were mechanisms in that game that stop bots playing, and that if you got the high score, it paid out some Bitcoin. That'd be a very simple GameFi, application of the GameFi model, but there are much more sophisticated things that are possible, of course. And both SocialFi and GameFi themselves, which are SocialFi is a convergence of social media functionality and DeFi functionality. GameFi is a convergence of game functionality and DeFi functionality. But both SocialFi and GameFi will themselves converge in the metaverse. And if you want to try have a way of imagining how this will be, imagine a three-dimensional world created using something like Unity, which already is used to create half of the world's games, and which now can compile down to WebAssembly and run in the browser. Imagine you're in a 3D world created using, say, Unity, compiled, into WebAssembly, running in the browser, and you're able to interact with different users in that universe, and maybe those interactions, and it's probably gamified, right? But maybe those interactions are powered using something like OpenChat, which is brought into that environment. And you might be able to interact using this sort of OpenChat functionality, interact with other users inside the metaverse, and exchange NFTs, for example. And those NFTs could be virtual goods or items related to some kind of game you're playing, or the virtual clothes you're wearing within that environment. So I don't profess to see where all this is going. I don't think anyone can see, because developers are incredibly creative, and there's an awful lot of people working on this kind of stuff. But I can tell you there's going to be some very, very exciting things in the decentralized metaverse, and it's going to be huge in the next few years. Yeah, I mean, if you follow the internet computer ecosystem, you'll know that there are some very talented people already, building metaverse content on the platform. So, for those of you that are entrepreneurs or sort of entrepreneurial developers listening, you're probably wondering how you can build something, and not just build something, but succeed financially, because obviously if you're succeeding financially, you can hire more people and you can make something even better. So my advice for those of you that are ambitious is, first of all, decentralize completely, and then tokenize. You can only really tokenize if you're completely decentralized, and incorporate community funding. So hopefully January 2022, there's something called service nervous system functionality coming on the internet computer. Service nervous systems are a kind of super DAO. There's already something called the network nervous system, which is, again, it's the world's, I think the network nervous system is a DAO that actually controls the internet computer blockchain network. And I believe it's the biggest by total lock value, TVL. It's certainly the most technically advanced, and it's certainly the most impactful, and it processes, it's already processed thousands of proposals, and these are automatically executed by the network. So if you're interested in the next generation DAO technology, just go to nns.ic0.app, and you'll get a DAO front-end app that'll load directly off the internet computer blockchain. Anyway, 4 steps. 1, build true Web3 services using the internet computer. The corporate cloud is kryptonite. Corporate cloud is not Web 2.0. Sorry, corporate cloud is not Web 3.0. It's Web 2.0, very obviously. And if you build your DApp system or service using corporate cloud, you'll regret it for reasons I'll explain. Number 2, once you've built a successful DApp service system, whatever, pass control to a service nervous system. A service nervous system is a community DAO that basically can take over control of the service and allow the community to push updates and things like that. So a service like OpenChat, which I've mentioned several times, there are lots and lots of services on the internet computer. You should explore them. This chat service, currently it's got a user base, many tens of thousands, and in the new year it'll fully decentralize, run a decentralization auction, and assign control to a community DAO. And basically that's what I recommend you do. Once you assign control to a community DAO, it'll automatically run something called a decentralization auction. And what happens is that, the founding team gets some share of the governance tokens. The community that participate in the decentralization auction get the lion's share and really control the, DApple's service thereafter. And then some number of governance tokens are reserved for end users, as per the airdrop I described with OpenChat. The funds that are raised by the decentralization auction aren't given to the founding team; they're actually held inside the DAO. So it's once you've assigned control to a service nervous system DAO and it's run a decentralization auction, not only is the service running under the control of the community, but the community also controls the funds, which is obviously very different to the ICO model. And I think the power of this is that once you're fully decentralized, and when you assign control to a service nervous system, you really are fully decentralized and running under the control of a community. You're really running as an extension of the blockchain itself at that point. Once you've decentralized to that degree, you can actually employ advanced tokenization techniques. And it's very, very difficult to do that otherwise. So, if you want to do things like airdropping governance tokens to users, you better make sure that your Dapple service is running as an extension to the blockchain and it's not you doing it. And you're seeing the problems already. I mean, a couple of months ago, I think it was now, Uniswap, which is a big, DeFi DEX on Ethereum, it had to delist about half of the tokens. And the reason was that the Uniswap website, of course, ran on the cloud, and the developers were very much responsible for updating it and so on. It wasn't running under the control of a DAO. As a consequence, they sort of self-censored. The way past those kind of problems is to create dApps and services that run as part of the blockchain. They're blockchain extensions. There is really very little difference between the sort of native functionality that comes out of the box with a new blockchain, just the basic smart contract platform, and a Dapple service that's running under the control of a service nervous system that, in the case of the internet computer, is running under the control of the network nervous system. It's a blockchain extension, and that enables you to really apply the power of tokenization, and that's going to be is the most important thing here. Okay, I'll wrap up by mentioning a couple of other things that are coming. So I think I alluded to this at the beginning of the talk. The DFINITY Foundation is by far the biggest R&D operation in blockchain, and we actually employ more sort of famous and leading cryptographers than any other organization in tech, not just blockchain. And the reason for this is that the internet computer is all new from the ground up, and it's powered by a cryptography framework that we call Chainkey Cryptography. I haven't got time to explain it here, but what it enables the blockchain or subnet blockchains to actually sign for public keys. So, the internet computer blockchain has its own public key. It's called a chain key, and it can create signatures against that. Now, and that's absolutely essential to the way it can perform so well and scale out horizontally. But we're adapting that technology at the moment, and soon the internet computer will be able to create signatures for arbitrary keys, on other blockchains. So the first integration is with Bitcoin, and internet computer smart contracts will have their own Bitcoin addresses as well as ICP addresses. So that means that you could build a Bitcoin wallet on the internet computer, and it would have its own Bitcoin address, and you could send it Bitcoin, right? And it could send that Bitcoin to any other Bitcoin address. And the Bitcoin will move on the Bitcoin blockchain. These aren't wrapped Bitcoins. This isn't a side chain. This is basically, if you like, the planting of smart contracts directly on Bitcoin, which can actually process Bitcoins natively on. And when these smart contracts move these Bitcoins, they'll move on the Bitcoin chain. So this is super, super exciting. And of course, there are many applications, and DeFi is an important one. We're going to be bringing that sort of $1.5 trillion of liquidity onto the internet computer blockchain. But on the internet computer, you can do all kinds of things. So again, mentioning open chat, social fi applications, maybe your chat account of the future is really your crypto wallet. And now you can send Bitcoin with chat messages. This is really freaking cool. Following that, we're going to integrate the internet computer with Ethereum in the same way. Again, no wrapping or any of that nonsense, no bridges, no trusted intermediaries. We don't believe in that kind of thing. We just believe in hardcore advanced cryptography. And we're going to make it possible for internet computer smart contracts to call into Ethereum smart contracts and vice versa. And we think that'll be incredibly exciting and powerful too. So that's it from me right now. I hope I haven't gone over time. I'm going to end this and pop back to the group. Hey,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. Hi, Dominic. Thank you so much for your insightful keynote and for presenting the internet computer. And I'll hand the floor then to Diksha, who is the moderator for our roundtable discussion.
Hello, thank you, Stefania, and thank you, Dominic, for that wonderful talk on the beautiful and amazing things that are happening in the world of Web3. And now we'll carry on the discussion with our panelists as well. So also briefly introduced by Stefania earlier, we have Lomesh Datta from DFINITY, who's the VP of Growth, Elad Verbin from Lunar Ventures, Rouven Heck from ConsenSys Mesh, and Rafael from Blockchain Punk Labs. So hello, everyone. I hope everyone is on board. Probably I can.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Okay, yes, now
Hi,
I can
everyone.
see everyone.
Hey, everyone.
So why don't we go on a quick pitch about, since we've heard so much about Web3, probably I would love to hear your quick pitch about why Web3 and why we need it. And then you can add a line of intro about how you're working towards it in your respective roles in the organizations. So I hear some of you are mute already, but probably since we heard so much about DFINITY, I'll start with Lomesh and give the ground to him. So why Web3 and how are you working towards it?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hey, everyone. Great to meet you all. So I think when we at the DFINITY Foundation and the Internet Computer, when we think about Web3, in our mind, it's essentially reimagining of every internet app or service that exists today in a truly decentralized and censorship-resistant manner. So the key idea is let's take a couple of examples, right? So, for example, in the US, a right-wing service called Parler was essentially booted out by Amazon Web Services. Similarly, President Trump had to kind of face, Mark Zuckerberg had to decide on whether or not that person can stay on the platform. Now, we are not passing any opinion whether it's right or wrong thing to do, but what we feel that the power shouldn't be in the hands of centralized people. It is essentially something that the community needs to decide. It shouldn't be one person in one organization that should have the decision power. So that's how we think about the Web3 space. In our view, my personal responsibility, so I'm the VP of Growth at the DFINITY Foundation. And so for us, we are essentially supporting Web3 entrepreneurs who are building these open and decentralized services on the internet computer blockchain. And today we have pretty much every Web 2.0 service that you can imagine. As Dom was explaining, we have more than 1,000 different developers that are developing. So people are developing everything from open version of Reddit to Google Photos to WhatsApp to Google Drive. All of these is being reimagined in this Web3 kind of a decentralized manner.
Okay, thank you. And I'll probably come back on those use cases because I already had so many questions when I was listening to Dominic. So be back to you soon. And now probably Elad, welcome. And we also had a few chats before this webinar. So looking forward to your pitch.
Perfect. So to me,
It's most interesting to think of what Web3 gives in addition to decentralization and trustlessness, because those are huge values. But I always think back to the early days of the internet in the 90s, where everyone was like, oh, the internet is going to be this great place where everyone can speak their minds. And of course that's true, but that's not the actual value that turned out, the biggest value that turned out from the internet. Right? Why is the internet better than a telephone or a fax machine? It's not because everyone can speak their minds. It's a very nice thing. It's because it is an amazing platform to provide digital services and kind of use the scalability, use the scale of the planet to our advantage to get exponential gains. It's the same with Web3, I think. What Web3 will allow us is not only decentralization and trustlessness, that's a huge thing. It will also allow us to scale up digital operations in a way that the internet is just not managing anymore. And I can say, you know what, I'll give a quick spoiler maybe for the next question. I think one of the big benefits to this is there's going to be a big migration of Web 2 to Web 3. Then there's going to be all the new services that we can supply on Web 3 that were not viable on Web 2. And a big part of those is because in Web 3, the users pay for the service rather than the service provider. And that gives a huge shift to what services you can actually launch, because you don't need the giant funding that right now web services need to gain before they ever launch. So I hope we get to talk about that in a bit later.
Yeah. And probably a line or two about your role at Lunar Ventures.
Yes. So I'm the lead scientist and founding partner of Lunar Ventures. Lunar Ventures is a pre-seed fund investing in any computer science moonshot across Europe. And I work with founders around blockchain as well as cryptography, decentralization, machine learning, databases, and so on, to make digital tools much stronger and much faster. If you are looking for funding in any level, in any stage, pre-product, pre-market, come talk to me in blockchain or otherwise, and my email is all over the internet.
Okay. So anybody who's looking for funding, please DM Elad right now.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, and Rafael.
Yeah, thanks, Diksha. Hi, I'm Rafael Schulz. I'm the founder of Blockchain Punk Labs. We are an accelerator, and we are focusing on co-founding early stage startups which are using the technology of blockchain with a focus on fintech, or they want to use tokens or tokenization for non-equity fundraising. So fundraising without giving it to traditional VCs. We have been doing this since 4 years with DAOs, but recently now with German security tokens. And Web 3.0 is for us just a super important normal evolution. I mean, Web 1.0 was, should I have an internet address as a company? This was once a decision. Today, people are deciding, do I need a wallet address for my company? And what today is a question, tomorrow will be just a must-have and a no-brainer. And if you look in the future, what's happening in the next 24 months, in the next 2 years, we see that now most of companies are creating, you see like NFTs popping up, people seem to understand blockchain with that far easier, but you also see the social media waves, not only Pinterest and TikTok, where you can connect that, you can approach marketing-wise users, you can also found your company, nobody knows you, you just make the right posts, connected with a payment or with incentive. I mean, this wasn't able 2 years ago, it's now technically possible. And this is the hugest wave we expect in Web 3.0 for now.
Okay, and you already witnessed some use cases that also Dominic spoke about. So already stuff happening there. And thank you, Rafael. And Rouven, here we are.
Hey, good morning. So yeah, I'm Rouven. I work at ConsenSys Mesh, which is one of the two entities which spun out of ConsenSys. So our focus is more on the long-term, like it's portfolio, but we are focusing on research and identity, reputation, DAO tooling, whilst the other one is a bit more like the enterprise-oriented full stack company. So my definition is more, I think, really like it's more user-centric and move control into like protocols rather than big organizations. And I think that this allows us to align incentives better. I think we see with big tech over the last 10 years how much power they gained and how much control they have on decisions of our lives. And so the focus of what I'm doing is around digital identity. And that starts with putting the users into like the position to really be in control of their identity, like an identifier, which means they can prove that they are the rightful like owner of their identity, and then they can start interacting. So whether it's like storing data user-centric, but also authenticating, authorizing to other services, and start communicating in a trustworthy. It doesn't have much blockchain in it. It's more, I think, really like a user-centric technology stack. But blockchain is used in particular for key management and these aspects. So that's.
And what's your pitch for Web3?
So it's I think it's all like the shift from like a company-controlled internet to a user-controlled set of protocols to empower people with choice, because ultimately at the moment your choice is like Android or iOS. It's very little alternatives, and I think we need to build systems better which allows users to pick technologies and communities and allow them to more fluidly move between them instead of what we have today.
Okay, so I see a thread of we all want like decentralized control, more data ownership by users, and a free internet, hopefully. Oh, no internet, but Web3. So, and also I just want to announce that we would like this panel to be interactive. So even if you have questions during our discussion, please keep writing the questions and we'll be taking it during our discussion as well. So you don't need to wait for the Q&A session that comes at the end. And so, okay, now I come to my favorite part. So personally, I'm very always curious about the early adopters of Web3. And we all are trying to get people to build on, respective blockchains. And we already discussed some of the use cases by Dominic. He spoke about OpenChat, then I saw Fleek and District. So this is for you, Lomesh. Like, tell us about the experience of, onboarding these entrepreneurs and developers, and what are really the kind of people behind it? What are the challenges? How do you onboard these kind of projects at DFINITY?
Sure. So I think before I answer that question, I think I want to kind of raise one interesting point that I heard from Elad in terms of like Web3 is about this opposite flip model where users pay for interacting with the service. So I want to kind of actually share our perspective on that and then come back as a segue to the use cases aspect of it. So I think this, is like something that has been happening in the blockchain space so far, but I think people haven't really realized the full potential of what's out there. So I think this particular thing is the biggest reason why there is a friction in terms of user adoption of like Web3 services. Now there's a lot of activity that's going on in the DeFi space, but if you expect billions of users to be holding tokens in their wallet to be interacting with the service, then your use cases would be very, very limited. I'll give an example, right? So people on the internet computer, for example, let's say are building a decentralized version of Instagram. Now, every like and comment is a smart contract interaction. And I don't think that any user in the world would be ready to pay for liking something on Instagram. So that can't be a gas fees that I as user will be willing to accept and pay. So we feel that if you, and so on the internet computer, our model is actually the flip. In our model, what we have tried to do is try to make the fee so low that the developers can actually pay for their own computation, such that the end users, when they are interacting with the service, it doesn't feel any different than what they're doing on Web 2.0. So if I'm using Instagram and a decentralized version of Instagram, the user experience is the same from an end user perspective. So just as a thing that wanted to kind of mention. So in our world, so we launched our mainnet back in May. So it's been a little over 6 months. Actually, we didn't really see that challenge. We already have like 1,000+ developers that are already kind of flocking in to build in. What we are seeing is more of a land grab of people who are coming in and say, hey, this is how I can reimagine this Web 2.0 service, and I can kind of rebuild this on a Web 3 stack. what at least our developers are telling us is like, there is, like, I'll give an example. We organized this hackathon in 4 weeks. People were able to learn our like language Motoko and were able to actually deliver 100+ like running projects. So it's super simple to learn. And then you have an ability to kind of rebuild like a decentralized version of like anything that you can imagine.
Okay. And I feel like, Rafael, you could probably rebuild on this from the side of, working with entrepreneurs, helping them in, tokenization and venture development. And you're also on a side where, this is a new concept for venture capital, particularly. So what has been your experience in that front?
Yeah, this was a big change like in the last 4 years. But I just wanted to grab on the thing of the social media examples, which Lumis just shared with us. I think this is, we all use it privately and we all spend a lot of time there by side. We have even some apps showing us that we are spending too much time on it. So I feel that more and more blockchain DeFi projects should use this and show it, like leaving Discord, leaving this nerdy spaces of social media, and just approach the big common ones. I think this is the next wave where they should have their eyes open on it. But when it comes then to how to finance that kind of actions, right? I mean, we started 4 years ago, 2017, 2018, and there were so many developers here in Berlin. We have been on so many meetups who had nice ideas, who had like already like DAO discussions, and traditional VCs had a very strict like compliance guide to not invest into it. Of course, there were some already, like, but more privately. So the learning was you were talking to investors and they said like, okay, nice idea, we can pitch it. And then the moment you stopped the discussion with them, they privately asked you in which tokens they would like to invest, on their account. So we saw there was a shift of privately they're all in, but officially as a VC they are not all in. So this is changing, I think, right now. This is nice to see that after Corona, this is now not issue, and we see multiple rounds coming. But what we do and what we emphasize is tokenization is really a nice tool to get funds. Equity rounds are always very tough. You need to fulfill a lot of things. Security tokens or tokenization is a nice tool to get something done in 6 to 8 weeks. You have an idea, you place it to the community, and then you create a utility token or a security token, and then you can amaze the people in the space. So what is happening now in Germany is that security tokens as a tool to raise funds are fully regulated by the German financial authority BaFin. And Bitbond was 2 years ago the first one to raise 3 million with that kind of tool, up to 3 million. And now we see a huge wave of companies doing it. I think this year there were already like more than 60 raises, some official, some private, and you can raise 1 to 8 million euros with that tool. So this is quite nice. The setup is like 2 to 3 months. We call it like a mini IPO. Yeah, basically Germany said, okay, what would happen if we bring this technology to our financial traditional market? So the status quo is that you can use Ethereum or Polygon or Stellar and then take some German lawyers, set it up, and then make it happen. This is quite cool, and we see this is just the beginning.
Can I add something there?
Sure.
Yeah, so look, I mean, in the broader context, things that succeed on the internet on a grand scale always enable other people to make money. Okay, so if you look at something like AdWords and ads and ConsenSys, which are still the main sources of revenue for Google. Okay, the reason they were so successful is they enabled other people to make money. Okay, so if you went back to the early 2000s, even, you looked at big commercial portals on the internet, they all had their own ad sales teams. And I actually provided a framework, a platform for people building out, big commercial portals. And, I interacted with a lot of companies, with running web properties with a lot of users, and all of them had their own ad sales team. You know, there's a director of ad sales, and he had a team of people underneath. So you know, that worked for them, but you know, if you were just an individual with a popular website, you had no way to monetize it. But you know, once in AdWords and ConsenSys, you know, that came along, and you could just take a JavaScript snippet and put it on your website, and now you're making money. And all of a sudden, anybody with a website that had a reasonable amount of traffic could start making money from it just by copy pasting this JavaScript snippet from Google into their HTML. And, you know, we can see that being extrapolated today through social media. You know, if you're on Instagram and you have a particularly popular post, you know, you'll be able to collect some advertising fees from it. Now, today, with respect to venture capital, it's still very much a Silicon Valley centric world. That's the brutal truth. I'm a European entrepreneur. I'm actually back in Zurich now, but I was, you know, spent 10 years in Silicon Valley, and I can tell you it's a whole different world. You just have much easier access to capital if you're a strong entrepreneur, and you know, it's going to take a very long time for the rest of the world to catch up. It's improving enormously in Europe, but it's still way behind the US. And if you're in other places, probably you've got no chance at all, realistically speaking, unless you're very lucky. So Web3 and tokenization enables any entrepreneur or any team of entrepreneurial developers to raise funds effectively. And that's why it's so exciting. So, you know, if you're a team of engineers in London or Berlin, you've got much less access to capital than a team in Palo Alto, where I've just been for 10 years, for example. But if you're a team of you know, developers in Tomsk, Siberia, you know, you've really not got much access to capital at all. And in fact, you probably don't, you know, if there is somebody that wants to invest in your business, you're probably better off saying no, right? For your own safety. So, you know, we can see that, like, you know, sort of 95% plus, probably 99% plus of the world's developers don't have access to capital to build out successful projects. Tokenization changes all of that. So now today, and we very much focus on this, you know, you can build an open internet service, a DApp, a completely decentralized DApp, no bullshit with cloud services, because that's not really Web3, that constrains you. You can build a completely decentralized internet service on the internet computer blockchain, and you can tokenize it. You can assign control to this service nervous system DAO, and it'll thereafter run under the control of the community and run a decentralization auction, which again places, you know, the funds raised under the control of the community, which can thereafter, you know, make payments to you as a founding team for work, you know, you're doing to pay developers who are contributing code and so on. But you know, as a developer or entrepreneur, of course, you can still be very successful in this model because you get as the founding team a large chunk of the governance tokens. So you know, with this model, you know, any team of developers, any entrepreneur anywhere in the world can raise money. Now, why is this important? The internet itself provided a permissionless free market for the world, and that's why we saw so much innovation and growth and entrepreneurialism. But you know, we saw that because the computation was run on big tech and it was centralized, that eventually, you know, you saw the rise of these big tech monopolies. But now with blockchain, we're going to see that all of a sudden the access to the tech economy is democratized, and we're going to see teams from all over the world building amazing things and getting funded to really build those projects out. And honestly, I mean, it's good. This is what's going to drive the next economic wave. It's just not an efficient use of human resources to have an architecture, an economic architecture, which really concentrates the vast majority of the capital on a relatively small pool of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, and of course other places in America, and to a lesser extent Europe. It should be possible for any team of developers, any entrepreneur, anywhere who's got the talent. It should be a meritocratic system to build something amazing and raise the funds to really grow it out. And, you know, as a test, we should be expecting, you know, some super nerd entrepreneur in Lagos, Nigeria to be building the next social media big thing. That's when we've really succeeded with this. But in doing so, we're going to leverage all of the talent in the world, not just that tiny slither of talent that's lucky enough to have access to capital. That's the future.
Dominic, if I might add something to this, I completely agree on this. I think that's to shorten even this up is like there's been never an age where developers could raise millions directly from the hand on, because normally you needed this business-like CEO who was building trust, talking to people, being communicative, open, smiling. And this is like, you can still have it, but you don't need it anymore. If you are really a tech entrepreneur and you're sitting down with 3 cool guys, you're building your MVP, you put it into the community, and then you can make it happen in 2 to 3 months and raise the money. But also we shouldn't underestimate the potential of VCs. I think now we are coming into an age, and this would be also interesting to hear from Elad, hybrid fundraising scenario. So on the one hand, you can raise by tokenization, but then this is included. They can also reach out for an equity round with VCs, because don't forget, these are smart people with a huge network. They have done already building unicorns. They know what you need to create really a global company. Raising for your MVP is one thing. Building a global high quality company out of it is a second. And I think here VCs are having still a huge responsibility and major role for such fast growing startups.
I think that's true, but where I disagree is about companies. So if you look at an organization like Fleek isn't really an organization. This is where it's interesting. Now, they're lucky enough to be self-funded from earlier token investments, or token holdings. But those guys have got like 5 or 6 projects, and they're planning on launching them using service nervous system DAOs, and there will be no company behind them. Now, I think within this new environment, you'll see the venture model adapt. So, for example, you know, when there was a company called String Labs in Palo Alto that through 2016 incubated the DFINITY project, it was then called. And, you know, they incubated it until the DFINITY Foundation was created in Zug, and we're actually in Zurich now, but October 2016. And then the DFINITY Foundation raised its own funds February 2017. As a consequence of incubating the DFINITY project, String Labs got a whole load of founder tokens. And I mean, investors, and by the way, String Labs was a venture-backed company and it did extremely well. The venture investors in String Labs did extremely well because as a consequence of incubating this decentralized project, you know, they got founder tokens and they distributed as a special dividend. But that kind of model can be applied. That blockchain funding model can be applied to dApps. So what we're seeing now is a lot of venture firms getting involved in kind of helping the individuals who and supporting the individuals who are actually building out these projects, some of which are pretty major undertakings with respect to the engineering. And then, you know, when these projects launch, they're going to get a share of the founder tokens. But there may not even be, in this brave new world, there may not even be, and in fact, we recommend there isn't a company behind these dApps. And by the way, you can see the contradiction. Would the internet have been the internet if it was run by a company? Of course it wouldn't have been the internet. It would have been America Online, it would have been CompuServe, it would have been Microsoft's information superhighway Vision. The internet is the internet because it's not controlled and run by a company. Similarly, if you want to have a dApp and you want that dApp to be free to apply advanced tokenization, you cannot have that dApp owned and controlled by a company. It does not work. It cannot work for the simple reason that you'll run into all kinds of regulatory problems. Look, the number one way that you're going to find that you're going to be able to grow SocialFi, services that blend social media with DeFi, is to give users tokens, make users the owners and make users the team, okay? And you do that just by airdropping governance tokens to active users. Unless you're completely decentralized, unless you're running as a blockchain extension, unless you're running entirely from blockchain, if you're a fake dApp, which is basically a fake dApp is something that runs on the cloud and makes a few calls to a blockchain on the back end. That's fake. It's not really a decentralized application. It's a blockchain application. And the regulators will come after you and say, wait a second, these are securities, you're airdropping these securities to your users in order to generate demand, and you'll have the SEC on your back. So it's incredibly important that you're fully decentralized if you want to be able to apply advanced tokenization and really grow. And in that for those similar reasons, it's sometimes better to not have a company. It's sometimes better to be completely decentralized.
Yeah. So Dom, Elad and Rouven have some questions on this topic.
Got it. So I think it's going a great discussion and awesome to get so many perspectives. I just have a question from the audience, and then probably you can take that and build your thoughts on that, Rouven and Elad both.
Could I actually, if we change the topic, I think there's too much to keep in mind. Can I actually take over for a second? So there's two topics that were raised, and I would, I hate to be that Israeli, but I'd love to push back on both of them. I don't know if we have enough time for that, but here are the two claims. One, and they're related, interestingly. One is it's better if the service providers pay for the service, and DFINITY will make sure that that's cheap. Okay, because users don't want to pay for liking things, and it's unreasonable to ask them to pay. And two is the decentralized nature and financial nature of the blockchain and decentralization makes it much easier for projects to raise funds, and that's a really great thing. And three is the VC value add, which I will not address because I actually agree that VCs add a lot of value, but it's irrelevant. I think that's not the right reason to push back on decentralized funding. Now, interestingly, I personally believe both of these are wrong. Maybe the future will prove me wrong, and for related ways. So first of all, here's why I think projects will not find it easier to raise online, or not much easier, that there won't be a step change. There's this great writer, Matt Levine, that says that blockchain has been for the last 10 years rediscovering the world of the history of finance by doing it and falling into all the traps that finance has gone through in the last 300 years at an accelerated pace. And that's exactly the reason that companies don't start anymore by IPO, is because that turned out to be a really, really bad idea. And raising for projects by tokenizing and selling those tokens to unsuspecting, very optimistic people has contributed substantially to the history of finance, and ultimately everyone agreed this is a bad idea, let's not do it, and we overcorrected to the other side.
No, but just, I have to stop you there, because just to be clear, I mean, that's not what we're suggesting. That's a bit of a straw man. So I would never suggest that we went back to the ICO model. The ICO model was a failure, and let me tell you why it was a failure. You had bands of people, many of whom were kind of cowboys or just in it for the quick money, and they just invented some token and sold them directly to unsuspecting retail investors, and then ran off with the money. So that's
without ever a product. It's just a white paper.
Yeah, we're just a white paper. This is an idiotic, completely idiotic model, and we're not propounding that at all. What we're suggesting is that people first build successful dApps and services, and then assign. Hold on, wait a second. First, they build something that's successful, and then they, assign control of that.
Yeah. You need an MVP.
Assign control of this. Assign control of the MVP to a DAO, and then they use that to accelerate it. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Look at OpenChat. OpenChat is an extraordinarily sophisticated social-fi chat service, and it will do this in the new year. But you should try using it. It's oc.app, oc.app. For OpenChat.app. Try it out, it's amazing. And that will decentralize by assigning itself to a DAO, a service nervous system, and then that will run a decentralization auction, and that will further accelerate it. But there's absolutely no talk whatsoever about returning to the failed ICO model that really sort of.
But there doesn't need to be talk.
That's something very, very different here. So
no, but I also want to.
Thank you very much. So that's great. But I think Rouven really has something to say for a long time, and I would just like
to give Elad a chance. I would jump in. Just finish your thought.
But just to be clear, that's not what we're suggesting. That's not what we're suggesting here. I don't want us to be. Yeah. Okay. So don't.
It's not.
But Dominic, I think.
But users will do. But follow the incentives, right? Show me the incentives. I'll show you the result. And decentralized networks allow this. And if they allow this, this is invariably part of what will happen. In fact, that's most of what will happen if no one steps inside. So is the Dominic Williams police that sits there and says, oh, I judge you by my standards? Are you saying we're going to
it's the community that will decide.
The first thing is there's two things here. First of all, with respect to decentralization auctions and DAOs, people will be investing in things that are already running. So they can look at this thing and they can use it, and that's the first piece. The second piece is, the second piece is that the funds in a decentralization auction go into the DAO and thereafter are held under the control of the community that invested in that decentralization auction. So there's no opportunity for a founding team to run off with the funds, because that's not how it works. That's the difference. So in the old model on Ethereum, typically, but it could be on any chain, obviously. And the ICO model, you've got a band of people came together, they created a glossy website, described their vision, and often with no substance, raised vast amounts of money, and then just sort of didn't deliver, didn't build what they promised, or disappeared with the funds completely.
Wait, so
we're not talking about giving the funds to a founding team. We're talking about the funds being within a DAO and the community deciding how those funds are dispersed. So in both cases, it's completely different.
But one question: who's going to stop ICOs from running on DFINITY or anywhere else?
Sorry.
Who is the entity that stops this?
Because people have
it's a blockchain, people can do it, but I hope people have to use their wisdom not to participate in ICOs, right?
So I think
I love this discussion, and I love passion that all of you have towards this topic. And Rouven, I would really like to.
Sorry. So I think the main thing is I think getting some people's attention is either because you built something or you wrote a really great smart white paper. But I think it's normal. I think we see this today and we'll see this in the future, that some people raise money with or without very good substance. I think incentive alignment, I think, is big. And I think that's where we have a big opportunity, whether it's with the DAO or something else, to build a system where the early investors will be part of the success of this and who are believers. But it's really hard, I think, because we will see with the ICO craze, we will see hundreds of them started, and it was very hard for people to really understand what is true or not, and people got greedy. Yeah, so I think there's lots of stuff which go wrong. You have now VCs who get greedy and invest in lots of stuff at the moment. I'm not quite sure the system itself is the valuation at the moment are crazy. But that's not actually what I was trying to say. It's more I think my challenge is where do we see blockchain use cases for now? We see where trust is maybe challenged. So we see that people sitting on crypto assets and want to have assets in some form of to finance. Yeah. So we had BlockFi and Celsius and others, and people are now using DeFi, which is cool because you can borrow against your cryptos holdings and have some dollars and use them. So I think that's one thing. Then we see the NFTs because it gave people another mechanism to raise awareness, raise money, yada yada, for creators, which I think is interesting. The DAO stuff is, I think, coming up more and more now, which is cool. But I think where I don't see where we are yet as an industry is that people care enough about decentralized social media. I think they should, and I think they will. But I think where we are today, most people don't see the problem big enough. I think that's an average person doesn't see why I know the internet has such a big problem. And I'm not. I think, Dominic, we agree, but I think the industry is not there yet to know.
But I think that's the whole point, right? So, yes, if you just replicate WhatsApp on a blockchain, and just to be clear today, the only blockchain you can do this on is the internet computer. All the other blockchains really support BAPs, not DApps, blockchain applications where you build something on cloud and then you just do a few calls on the back end. That's the truth. But hold on, let me answer the question.
I know your stand-up pitch about this. We heard 20 minutes.
But the tokenization, but Rouven, it's the tokenization. Look, if you want to succeed, tokenization is everything. It's the whole thing. You have to make users the owners and the team. Look, traditional social media or big tech social media made users the product. Okay, Facebook worked out that, you know, you just got all the users onto the platform and you got them on this hamster wheel where they kept on clicking on content, and through that you could determine what the, you know, the predilections and preferences of the individual users were. You know, if you click on QAnon, you get more QAnon. If you click on baby products, you get something to do with babies. They can feed you out. You know, they can sell you to their advertisers who want to advertise nappers. But the thing is, right, the next phase makes users both the owners and the team, and that's the trick, right? Once you can give users governance tokens, so they become you know, eventually the majority owners of these social media, these new next generation Web3 social media services, then you'll see that they're extraordinarily engaged, and you can use all kinds of extremely clever tokenization incentives and use them for, and get them doing things like moderation. That's how you get them on, right?
And I think with you, I think, but this play to earn gaming, like there's lots of stuff which is we're experimenting with incentives, which is cool. So I'm with you on the long term. I'm disagreeing that because Ethereum doesn't host all this, people are hosting it on Filecoin. You have your UI there, you point in your smart contract with the hash to the IPFS thing. So there are solutions out there today. I think in the identity space, most of the stuff you don't want on any blockchain. It has nothing to do with, so what you want is to have it somewhere where you have access control to certain data and people can interact. Like, why does everything needs to be on the blockchain? Like, I think there are lots of benefits, and I like
cryptography, Rouven. I'm telling you, I mean, look, the history will prove it, absolutely prove us right. I mean, you know, with respect to identity, if you're going to store people's identity data on the blockchain, then people can prove things in zero knowledge. It's called property-based identity. So, for example, I can prove to you in zero knowledge, I'm over 21, sadly much older. I mean, you can.
I think a blockchain for me is like a
cryptography
information, correct? But in my mind, the data will never need to live on a blockchain. Like, why I can have data.
It's already, the game's moved on. That's why, you know, people like that are selling themselves as scalable and fast.
It is like the data can live off chain. I can prove, and it does not need to be on the blockchain.
But then the smart contracts can't process it. That's the fallacy of that idea, is that you know, the whole smart contract is a union between data and computation within a secure trust zone. And that's the magic and power of smart contracts. And that's why DeFi has taken off Ethereum, because the financial data and the logic that processes that financial data are together, living together on the Ethereum blockchain.
See,
when you move into social form, it has to be together.
Lovesh, let me just, like, let's answer what actually people want to listen to. So I think there are two, and, you know, let's also probably get to a more action-oriented discussion. So the question is that from a developers and entrepreneurs point of view, if they really have to choose a project where to build on, or, you know, how to choose which project to get involved in and where to build and what's there to go to, what are the three things or three factors that they should keep in mind while choosing a project? So that's the question. And who wants to take it up?
I mean, you know my answer. I'll just say decentralization. Don't build on cloud, build on blockchain. You know, every other blockchain out there tells you that people are building on their blockchain. It's complete nonsense. They're building on the cloud and making a few calls on the back end into the blockchain. The problem with that is you cannot implement next generation tokenization strategies. And that's the whole thing here. The billions of users that are going to come to blockchain aren't going to come through DeFi. They're going to come through SocialFi and GameFi. And if you want to apply the advanced tokenization strategies necessary to really grow quickly, you need to be running entirely on blockchain in a decentralized way. So that would be my advice. You know, follow the path, build on blockchain and blockchain only, and do it full Web3.
Okay, and this is actually personally my question. So I interview like a lot of people from the blockchain world and a lot of projects, and you know, sometimes I feel like there are these decentralized projects working in silos, of course, attracting like a lot of developers, entrepreneurs to build on it, and of course that's for obvious reasons and the right reasons. But what is it that as an ecosystem, as a community, that we can really do together to build a web that's truly decentralized, even with different decentralized web projects? And the floor is open, whoever wants to take this up.
I'll stay quiet because I'm opinionated.
So, Elad, do you want to go on this one?
No, I think people building separately, focusing on building is exactly what we need, and I think things are going great. If anything, I think what we're missing is not only engineers but policy or people. You know, it's hard because there's a lot of because there's engineers in the world and there's public policy people in the world, and the two don't intersect very much, but engineers are the ones building technology for the future, and more in a decentralized, self-sufficient way without needing anyone else. And the difficulty with that is that engineers don't always make the best public policy people. That's not where they're trained to do. And on the other hand, public policy people definitely don't make very good engineers. Ask any public. It's funny because public policy people are like incentive engineers, right? That's their job. They look at how to what point A is that where we start and how to incentivize getting to point B. But they're not very good technical engineers. And we need more of the two types of people to work together, because I think it's not only what to build and what to allow, but how to get there. This is, I mean, I'm a little bit talking about the discussion we just had, which is how do you get, let's all decide, I think let's decide on some guidelines for what the future we want to get at, and then let's figure out how to get there. And I think number two is actually very, very hard. And that's what public policy is all about.
I think what we need is to bring a more diverse set of people into that ecosystem. I think that's where, whilst I might disagree with certain points from Dominic, I think largely I'm fully with him. Like, I think the incentives are broken in the internet. We need this. So we need to get people from like designers, like policy people, like everybody joining this, understanding this new future technology stack and the possibilities. And the good thing is we have different technologies, because I think it pushes us to innovate. And I think building something where people have choices to like use different technologies. So I think I'm just encouraging anyone to like learn and get involved, because Web 2 is dead, join like Web 3 movement. And I think that's kind of the most important thing, where we're all hopefully in agreement here. And I think there are like very different technology, I don't know, programming languages, different things to learn. And we will see which of these, I don't know, take momentum. And to be honest, I think it's not one or the other. I think they will, like as Dominic mentioned, with the capabilities they're building into Ethereum and Bitcoin, I think the stuff will be hopefully coming much better together in the future, because it's all crypto at the end. And we'll see how the stack above will look like.
Thank you. And talking about future and people coming together. So, Rafael, what do you think would be the next trend in Web3 in, let's say, tokenization in 2022?
Oh, that's a tough question. Yeah, what is the next trend? Like, what's the next opportunity? But I think we all see the great formal wave of NFT discussion this year. Like we see that normal common people on the street, I think that's NFT is a buzzword for normal people on the common street understand finally what blockchain is. So we see that any startup who's doing something around it is now like exploding and is getting very fast funds. And this is definitely the trend of this year, next year as well. But what will happen then when everybody now owns an NFT or is like investing into ecosystems and is hanging out on Telegram, Discord, and on all these channels? Then we think the next big trend is I think networks of organizations, decentralized autonomous organizations, so DAOs, because then we have now an ecosystem where everybody is starting to use blockchain or maybe investing in blockchain or talking about it and being a member. But the next wave will be then how we can organize ourselves. Are we still stick to email and to Discord and Slack discussions, or do we bring it to the next level, governance? Yeah. So governance, I think for us is like the next trend, which will pop up next year, because now millions of people are onboarding into multiple memberships, and this somehow needs to be organized. And any startup disrupting then this next trend and saying, okay, guys, we build now the new sexy, maybe the new Instagram as a DAO. I mean, this would be for us the next opportunity where we would like to onboard.
Yeah, or the next Discord. It's an open chat.
Rafael, you must check out the Internet Computer and check out the network nervous system, because you'll see the world's most advanced DAO technology in action. I think it's got about $10 billion total locked value, and it's also just processing. It's running the entire internet computer blockchain. It's extraordinarily advanced. It processes how many proposals does it process a day? It's a lot.
Yeah, it's hundreds of proposals every day.
And so it's the most. I think it's the largest by total lock value. It's certainly the most advanced in terms of the technology involved, and in terms of impact. I mean, it's actually managing a blockchain and all the nodes that host that blockchain. That same technology is going to be available for every single dApp that's running on the internet computer in early next year. So something in any of these things, like this thing called District, which is like a Reddit open chat. I mean, there's hundreds. I've lost count because unfortunately I'm busy on other things. But any of these services, I think there's probably 50 to 100 ready to do this right now. We'll actually just assign control to another network nervous system DAO called a service nervous system. And run in a decentralized way. It's going to be absolutely huge, and that's coming in the new year. But
and I think the big picture goal is that we think that every system and service would be designed completely on blockchain and reimagined in very different ways. So right now it started with DeFi, then we have NFTs, but we shouldn't really think it's going to be limited to just these things. It's already started to see in DeFi, but I mean we think social media, like enterprise systems, everything would be redesigned on the blockchain. And we feel that, let's say, internet computer is like one chain where this is all possible. It can all come together. But I think as a big picture, from a community perspective, we should think of like a complete end-to-end decentralization and not some patchwork where half of the stuff is running on Amazon Web Services, still a centralized cloud. So if we can kind of create that kind of a future where we can get everything end-to-end decentralized, then we have an interesting future ahead for the blockchain world.
But Lomish, I disagree a little bit, like 25% is that what you said. There will remain, and they need to be centralized solutions, like kind of large enterprises still will have their their intranet, and the intranet in the future will be it's a must-have to have it centralized because they want to have some
that
areas
still exists today in like
we shouldn't underestimate it.
Okay.
That's true.
And I think probably this could be interesting for you to answer. This was actually sent before the webinar by Melody Song. She is the Director of Global Impact at Popcorn Foundation, which is a DAO. And she says, my question is that I see many Web3 projects related to social impact. However, there is a general disconnect with real world social impact sector because of accessibility and high learning curve of Web3 technology, as well as uncertainty in this market. How do panelists see this problem being resolved? Will this connection be a focus or be of interest to leaders in this space at all in the future or now?
I mean, the Web3 is just too damn complex. She's right. I mean, currently, if you listen to, for example, if you want to build a scalable, fully decentralized dApp on Ethereum in the social media space, say, or SocialFi dApp, you're going to need to have some smart contracts on Ethereum. Then you're going to have to use something like Plasma to scale it out, Polygon network. And then you're going to need to host the static web content on Filecoin or IPFS, which actually really is Cloud 2. It comes from Cloudflare, but we'll ignore that. And all of these things have to be made to work together. It's a nightmare. And that's why, we believe in, end-to-end blockchain. You can build on the internet computer using smart contracts and nothing else, because smart contracts on the internet computer can actually serve web. And it just becomes incredibly simple. It's actually simple to build. It's simpler to build services on the internet computer once you know what you're doing than it is to build on Amazon Web Services. Blockchain and Web3 makes things simpler. That's the truth. Not more complex. It's just that today things are very fragmented and most blockchains just don't have the ability to host much data or computation. And that's why you see these kind of complex architectures arising. But if you want to build on the internet computer blockchain, because it's horizontally scalable and it runs at web speed, and because the smart contracts can actually serve web, it makes things super simple, arguably even simpler than building an Amazon Web Services. So I recommend she checks that out.
Okay. So I hope she gets her answer. And then there is Stadolf. He says they say if you allow a contract to store an unlimited amount of data, and if it has to do a lot of processing, this is for you, Dominic, actually. How do you hold the promise of 2 seconds finalization time? And how do you avoid race conditions if validation takes place in parallel?
That's a great question. So there are 2 parts to the answer. The first part to the answer is that Canister smart contracts actually are an implementation of the Actor software model. So each individual smart contract is a bundle of WebAssembly bytecode and persistent memory pages. And only that WebAssembly bytecode can process the contents of that persistent memory. And so it's a bundle, and that's why the smart contracts are called Canister smart contracts. Now, those Canister smart contracts interact via message passing. Now, of course, when I say message passing, what I really mean is function calls and function call results. And it's possible to create a framework in which that parallelism remains deterministic. And that's what we do. So first of all, the smart contracts themselves can run in parallel in a deterministic way, and that's getting more sophisticated all the time. Of course, the internet computer is the only blockchain capable of doing that. Secondly, the internet computer network is actually made up of subnet blockchains. And these individual subnet blockchains get the required levels of resilience and security through something called deterministic decentralization, i.e. there's something called the network nervous system, a DAO, a DAO, that assembles these subnet blockchains in such a way that they're sufficiently resilient and secure by specifically choosing nodes from different providers. And then I mentioned earlier, we've got the world's biggest team of sort of famous cryptographers, and they've created something called Chainkey Cryptography. Essentially, that enables you to validate your interactions with a blockchain just by looking at the signatures that it adds to data in your interactions. And that means you don't need to have a copy of the blockchain's blocks. So, traditionally you get a local node, you download all the blocks from the blockchain and you rerun them and you validate it. That's not necessary with Chainkey cryptography, which means that all of these subnet blockchains that make up the internet computer network are able to directly interact without having a copy of each other's blocks. And the blockchains themselves, therefore, they do keep recent blocks, but they discard them after a while to stop it just overflowing their memory. So, okay, so then you can see that there's another other piece. Is you asked about a smart contract being able to hold an infinitely large amount of data. That's not actually possible on the internet computer. A smart contract currently is limited to 4 gigabytes of persistent memory pages. That limit is being increased a little bit. I believe I've sort of lost track of that, but it'll always be bounded. And if you want to create, Facebook, and obviously not Facebook, like open Facebook owned by the users and run by the users on the internet computer, you won't be able to do that using a single smart contract. You're going to actually have to use lots and lots of smart contracts. That's ultimately how you scale. Albeit, even a single smart contract on the internet computer can process vastly more data than smart contracts on any other blockchain. But if you do want to create a horizontally scalable dApp, you actually need lots of smart contracts. One of the features that's actually missing from the internet computer currently that we're working very hard on and is coming soon is something called subnet splitting. What happens if a subnet that's hosting a whole load of Canister smart contracts becomes overloaded because the smart contracts on that subnet blockchain just keep on expanding the amount of persistent memory pages they're using? Well, actually, the subnet blockchain splits. So you get 2 subnet blockchains. And one, at the moment of split, they both have complete copies of all the smart contracts. And then, one deletes half of the smart contracts and the other one deletes the other half. And boom, that you've cut their utilization rates in half. And which means that the subnets can, split and reduce their utilization rates without interrupting service to the smart contracts. And that's coming very soon. It's one of the most complex features, of course, because all of that has to work in concert with all of the sort of lower level cryptography that's used to host this thing. But yeah, those are the pieces, asynchronous.
Dominic, I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but you're a super big expert, but I think we have so many other questions running.
All right,
so
I'll leave it.
Don't be angry about me if I jump in.
No, that's right. It's a great question though, because I think there's a lot of bullshit out there. There's a lot of bullshit out there in the space. A lot of people saying that they've got scalable blockchains, and this and that. But the reality is they haven't, and the fact that they haven't got that is belied by the cost of data on those, smart contract data on those platforms. That tells you that always reveals the truth.
Okay, so actually we just have 5 minutes and we have a question by our very own Stefania, so I really want to take that up. So it says the internet computer also replaces usernames and passwords with a single digital identity. And how does DFINITY aim to prevent dangers of being booted out or censorship and exclusion?
Yes, this is a big myth that unfortunately got amplified by all the FUD after we launched. There's a huge teams of people out there on the internet that literally just spend their time creating FUD about the internet computer to slow it down. Of course, naturally, we've got the world's biggest team of cryptographers. We don't have a single sign-on service. That's ridiculous. I think there was a technical writer who made a mistake who didn't understand at one point. We use something called internet identity. And internet identity is an anonymizing blockchain authentication service. And essentially, it allows you to create these handles and assign to these handles keys that are maintained by devices that support something called web auth n. So for example, I have some internet identity handles that I use for social media, for DeFi stuff. And, oftentimes I'm authenticating using the fingerprint sensor on my laptop, using the Face ID on my phone. And what's happening when I do that is there's some hardware circuitry that's activating, these TPM chips inside the device, and a session key is being sent inside that chip and being signed. And these internet identity handles have a certified list of these keys on these devices that are certified by Chainkey Cryptography. So it's absolutely revolutionary. Basically, users can authenticate themselves to dApps using their fingerprint sensor, Face ID, as well as things like ledgers and YubiKeys. And it's done in an anonymizing way. So each dApp sees a different pseudonym when you log in, so you can't be tracked across dApps. So whereas a traditional blockchain, you're always using, the same public keys. For example, with Ethereum, you're using an Ethereum account. So your use of Ethereum can be tracked across all these different dApps. On the internet computer, not only can you not be tracked, it's anonymizing, but you get the convenience of authenticating yourself with your fingerprint sensor, with the Face ID. Your cryptographic key material never leaves this secure hardware. So it's not possible for somebody to steal your keys unless you're very foolish. And so you're getting more security, more convenience, and you're kept anonymous within the blockchain environment because every dApp sees a different pseudonym. So it's a huge advance, and I invite anybody to try it out. Get an account, for example, just go to oc.app, openchat.app, or go to nns.ic0.app, nns.ic0.app. These are both these things are served directly off the blockchain, and you'll just find that if you've got whatever you're using, Face ID on a phone, fingerprint sensor on a laptop, or if you want to use a traditional HSM like a Ledger wallet or a YubiKey, you'll be up and running in a minute or so, and you can have multiple devices. So I can log into OpenChat on my phone using Face ID. I can log into OpenChat from my laptop using a fingerprint sensor. I can log into wallets like nns.ic0, which is .app is a wallet and a interface to the DAO, the network nervous system. I can use like secure HSMs. It's revolutionary.
Awesome. Thank you. That, I'm sure this is a very good answer for Stefania, and she's satisfied. So, okay, so now we just have probably, I think, Stefania, I'll take 2 minutes, not one. But if in 30 seconds each, all of you could just have one takeaway that you would like the audience to take from this panel discussion, what would it be? Like a line, not more than that. And then I would give it to Stefania from BerChain from there. So probably I'll go alphabet wise. Start with Elad.
So for me, there's one thing we didn't get to. So for me, maybe for a future discussion, that if in my theory of the world, you don't do a lot of fundraising for early stage stuff on the chain, what do you do? And for me, the answer is move the onus of payment to the users And when you do that, the users pay for it just like it was any other utility, electricity, internet service, and so on. But developers don't have to get funding from VCs and so on in order to start a competitor to Facebook. And that would allow many more web services to start and be competitive and be innovative.
Thank you. And now we have, oh, sorry, it was supposed to be Dominic first, D and E, sorry.
I mean, I hog too much time. I would just say, look, the future is, first of all, the convergence of everything, gaming, social media, DeFi. Secondly, in the future, today, big tech monopolies make users the product, and that's very sad. And in the future, the way we're going to fix this is by making users the owners and the team behind these things. And you're going to, with all of these things happening, and the convergence of all these things, the internet's just going to get a lot more exciting than it is today. And also, this is an enormous opportunity for people around the world who maybe wouldn't have had access to traditional venture capital. Look, you can build something and you can raise money via the community. And there's also a huge ecosystem of financiers, VCs, and angels now that want to get involved with these kind of projects and will help you get going. And they can help you from all over the world. So yeah, it's just a great time, I think, to be an entrepreneur or a developer if you're heading towards Web3.
Thank you. And now we have 2 R's. So let's start with Rouven.
So I think the Web 2 is broken, and we talked about this only briefly, about the incentives are just not aligned. So I think what the takeaway for everybody is like, start thinking about decentralized, like building decentralized. Smart contracts is like a really powerful tool, as Dominic explained. And I think thinking about the incentives for your future community, I think it's more like a mindset shift. It's like the technology is important, but people are building that. I think people need to rethink of building something in a decentralized manner. And that's from like the whole stack for like governance. How do you design the right tokens, token economics, incentives to make your users be part of this, and not just like consumers, but like really being part of the whole system. And that's why I think it's super critical. In particular, what I see in the next like 10, 20 years, like this digital world will be not just like the stuff we do online. It is immersive of our world, like IoT, AR, VR, all this stuff. We will not anymore distinct between like, oh, this is digital, like whatever. It will be so important that this is right, and otherwise we are screwed.
Okay.
We don't matter.
And Raphael gets the final word.
Yeah, I catch up on that what Rouven said. I think we just hired an intern, and she was like, yeah, since I can think, I know social media. So we have already this generation here, which just digital content is normal content, nothing special. It is the source of truth for them. And when you think about it, we just emphasized, just take Web 3.0 as a normal progress. It's a natural evolution, but you can grab up on specific trends and just build your application which you really like, where without any cultural boundaries. This is the technology which is like destroying all borders. Look, Africa is going live in the next 4 years. There were coming 2 billion new users live. Also Southeast Asia, even Antarctica is supposed to get his glass fibered cable. So the whole global planet is going online now. So it's still a lot of room for these applications. It's still the beginning. There is no FOMO in that we are too late. So build your application which is focusing on users who are communicating, who are making decisions together, where the digital space is not a metaverse anymore. It's just a normal live verse. Yeah, and then you're fine.
Okay, thank you. So if you're wondering, I didn't ask Lomesh, it was because we had an agreement that Dominic represents the both of them. And now we thank you very much for your inputs. And I can just agree as my closing remark that it's not only a great time to be an entrepreneur or developer in blockchain community, but also a moderator and listening to all of you. So thank you very much for your inputs. And now I give it over to Stefania from BerChain.
Thank you, Diksha. And I would like to thank Dominic and Lomesh and the DFINITY Foundation for organizing this event with us. And I would like to thank all the speakers, Rouven, Raphael, Elad, Diksha for moderating this insightful and engaging panel. And you will find the recording of this event online on our BerChain YouTube channel. The link is actually on the chat. So I'll see you to the next event, and thank you for attending and being also active audience of this event. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.